In our annual class about online safety, my generation must endure the same series of events. PowerPoint is opened and a 2001 video is played about a young woman's leaked nude which ruined her life. We watch as she struggles to build her dignity back up and how her relationship with her flip phone will never be the same. After 10 minutes of tears, a fade out begins, with red block lettering covering the screen. Stay safe, don't send nudes. Our world with technology has become both efficient and treacherous. Its integration into our everyday behaviour has drastically increased human success. Despite these many positive benefits to our lives, our focus falls on the damage of technology. Multiple studies have begun to quantify this digital fallout. Whilst more research is needed, there have been correlations between a decrease in mental well-being with time spent online or an increase in the diagnosis of mental health conditions mirrored with activity on social media. Naturally, professionals have tried to remedy this situation by turning the classroom into the medium to distribute these solutions. Commendably, schools nationwide have included online safety lessons into these programs, but the content of these lessons is faulty. That 2001 video is always a break from reading hundreds of statistics, tens of graphs, and overly dramatised anecdotes. Generation Z relies on these programs to be effective, yet our evolving statistics aren't showing any change. In 2022, New Zealand's youth spent an average of 42 hours a week online, exceeding the OECD average. 70% of Kiwi teens have experienced unwanted digital communications, with 19% of those impacting their daily lives. Generation Z comprehends this impact. We understand the context of this issue, as these reports show most of us have been affected by it, directly or indirectly. From this research, we need the ministry to apply these learnings and move away from inadequate lessons with 22-year-old documentaries. My generation needs these programs to be effective, yet each year the statistics grow, the numbers increase, and more of us are affected. Change in annual reports will only occur if we analyse the current failings of the educational status quo and apply modern solutions. Integration with technology has only existed for the past decade or so. This means Generation Z is the first to live fully integrated with these issues. The members of the ministry developing the programs for our teachers are members of Generation X and baby boomers. These age brackets did not grow up with devices. They are as new to these issues as we are. However, the important difference is they face different problems. Grooming, nudes being leaked faster than ever, algorithm-controlled emotional spirals, online stalking, compulsory advertising exposure, social media addiction, and involuntary control of personal content are all new ideas. Since Generation X is learning about these issues at the same time we're experiencing them, it creates blind spots in their understanding of the way these issues manifest. Without this knowledge, they are left to default to what they thought would work: historic educational methods. It's vital I make clear that these methods are not exclusive to any school, organisation or group. Equally, it's not all the ministry's fault. They have identified this issue and are trying to address it. That's an honourable first step. The matter of contention here is they're not analysing the problem to understand the complexity of what the solution will demand. Amongst all the bad of technology, we forget the benefits we gain from it. This perspective is terribly difficult to maintain from an educator's point of view, since both outcomes are diametrically opposed. This makes clarifying that negative outcomes from technology occur primarily from its incorrect use challenging. We're so scared of these negative outcomes that the counter to it has been avoidance. This may be understandable to someone who hasn't grown up with technology, but it's not just the 17-year-old in me that says that's not possible. Classrooms, research projects, nationwide examinations, programs for rural education, online study guides, and methods for different learning styles are some compulsory interactions students have with devices every day. Even with a 20-minute screen limit on my phone for social media, I'm still spending an average of 5 hours of my day on my laptop at school. This is why the exclusion of technology is not the solution. It's no longer plausible to stay safe by not being on technology, as we can't stay away from it. Hence, only preaching avoidance through repeated annual slogans like "stay safe, don't send nudes" is redundant. On the surface, "stay safe, don't send nudes" may appear concrete. However, it coincides with the 20th century education program. Implemented by Richard Nixon, the 1960s saw the ideology, "just say no." This phrase catalyzed the international war on drugs, exacerbating issues of societal drug consumption, evidently failing as the war on drugs continues today. In a complementary fashion, "stay safe, don't send nudes" highlights issues with that theme. From a psychological point of view, we learned last century, when you tell a particular group of humans to just not do something, you can idealize it and corrupt underlying educated reasoning. Bans can initiate appeal. They made drugs in the 20th century more desirable, and now in the 21st century, nudes are having a similar effect. This highlights that even if avoidance of devices was possible, it never reaches the entire population. That particular group, when intrigued, will launch into exposure and relapse in an unsafe way, using excitement and desire as a motive instead of practicality. Further meaning, "stay safe, don't send nudes," has scorched harsher outcomes than without its presence, giving youth a false perception of safety online. The manipulative nature of technology means we can't stay safe by not sending nudes. Technology can inner truth and change the way we respond. For example, not sending nudes is not necessarily plausible. Clearly, it's not something anyone should aspire to do, nor should it be encouraged in any way. But with realistic editing software, everything is complicated. Texting no to nudes doesn't necessarily mean you're excluded from the issue. Photoshop nudes, deepfakes, and even video manipulation are ways you can get accused of behaviour you did not consent to. Technology is too unique that even the basic command of no holds a different value from what it did in the 60s. And that's if you can say no. We can agree mutually with Generation X that peer pressure is a driving force, especially in youth. It's not realistic that everyone is going to say no to something just because someone their parents' age said they shouldn't do it. For most, it becomes challenging to adopt the safe solution if it is the outlier. That's why it's vital, if the solution is contrary to its surroundings, that it's applicable and able to create lasting change the individual can see. Otherwise, it feels pointless. After that video concludes, another issue in the course becomes present. External forces enter the class. Typically, after that 2001 video, when students will have shapen outside organisations into the class with more tragic stories, with more terrible endings. Achieving transparency in the actuality of this issue is partially achieved through connecting students to content like this. Yet, forcing children to this binary of their phones either being dangerous or safe wrongfully characterises devices as a weapon. Using fear as a driving factor for avoidance in education has worked before. However, since avoidance is unrealistic, a different outcome occurs. In 1975, when we scared entire audiences away from sharks, we didn't make people stop swimming. We created deliberate, unnecessary, and vengeful encounters with sharks as a means of safety. Like in Jaws, our classrooms are inducing blind spots in fearful students' education. This means the inevitable next encounter with a device is approached with fear that eventually loses its sting and fades away. Confusion is now formed as we use the internet for its intended good, but are confused why it's only shown as harmful. This forms a false sense of user security, thus removing any educated reasoning because it isn't as bad as what they told us. The final critical weakness in our online education programs is the constant depiction of teenage girls in images of weakness. Since we are only shown the lost young girl experiencing these issues, we only perceive these issues as affecting lost young girls. Consequently, this limits the student's field of view, particularly dangerous in this type of safety-based education. This leaves the 12-year-old boy asked for just a little look, or the honest student abroad going out with someone she's definitely met before, less likely to go through a safe path to diffuse the situation because they don't feel like that projected story. Representation in education is fundamental to its success. Students won't apply the learning if they feel it's not relevant. These stories of what can go wrong are important to show. There's no denying that. But we only seem to show one type of narrative. Everyone in our community in Generation Z is vulnerable to technology, and everyone has the right to have their story shown. If we can start to integrate students' likely background, culture, views, gender, age, and socioeconomic status, a subconscious thought process begins in the audience. Students will start listening and applying the learning because the content has become relevant. A complex issue is going to need a complex solution. Our road to success for our youth is never going to be easy. We're going to have to commit to persistence, transparency, and to our future. Most importantly, we need to take the historic solutions away from this issue. It will never be solved by a corporate room of 50-year-old men in a conference room. Instead, we need diversity on these panels to satisfy the diverse needs of our community. We need children targeting children, youth helping youth, and children helping children. When we bring young adults on board to help contribute to the decisions, it means the messages of safe device use can reach the intended audience. We can finally stop trying to preach avoidance and instead teach management and harm reduction. Realistic screen time plans, supportive education programs based on multi-curriculum understanding to develop learning across year levels, and specific outreach programs where negative situations arise are examples. These initiatives will also work if we recognise the generational gap between students and teachers, empathise with technological benefits, scrap avoidance-based strategies, ditch scare tactics, and create diverse educational resources. When we commit to this understanding of the future generation, will we begin to see the progressive change we all seek out? It's all well and good for myself, a teenager in the system, to preach those in charge of the system is ignorant, because it's just my teenage angst. Even though this burden falls heavily on the ministry staff, it's not exclusive to them. If we can start to amplify youth voices, we can start to understand social issues like this one. Right now, we have an issue unique to our times, failing an entire generation. Yet those behind the policy still get satisfaction from repeating the historic solutions from their era and pressing play to that documentary, drilling in that inadequate annual slogan. Stay safe, don't send nudes. Thank you.